Oops. I always hate when I do that. Okay. Anyways, let's see. How do we want to go about this? uh, so time and space, right? I've been reading. For those of you that have been following my videos and this channel, some of you know that I've been reading Kojeve's Introduction to Hegel. And Kojeve makes this assertion about time and space. And time and space for Kojeve. So, for example, space for Kojeve is equal to nature. So it's nature. It's you could say it's given being. And time for Kojeve is man. Time equals man for Kojeve. The reason why time equals man for Kojeve, it's a little complicated, but just to kind of like explain in a more graspable way would be to say that time is temporal and time annihilates. So you could say there's an aspect of time that negates, and man himself is time, basically, because man is temporal and man negates through his capacity to work and transform things. That's basically a really, really shallow overview of how Kojeve and looks at time. But time is also, you could say, like the actual being of human, right? Like the actual human part of being. So that's why he says time equals man as well. So when we talk about space and time, think about, in Kojeve's understanding about it, think about time as being that is humanized. And when we talk about space, think about nature in terms of given being, right? Given being. So now if we just reduce this and simplify it now, time is being that is overcoming, like being that negates and humanizes us. And then there's nature that is just given being, right? Okay, so now that I've gone into that, I also feel like I might not have to, or maybe it was unnecessary to go deeper into that, but for those of you that are more philosophically minded, I figured it was useful. But anyways, to go into what does this have to do with relationships, or how can we make this something that has to do with these relationships? Or how can Kojeve's notions of time and space impact our relationships? Uh, that's a good question. And ironically enough, I came across a funny, like, little Instagram video. It was like this little Instagram reel, and it was about it was like it was a comedy skit, basically, and it was a man. It was a couple that were basically arguing about, one is the woman is saying that uh, she wants to spend time with her boyfriend, but the boyfriend wants to play video games with his friends. And What what's kind of funny about it is uh, the man in the comedy skit doesn't really understand what the woman is saying when she's like, "Well, I want to spend time with you," and he's like, "But we live with each other. I see you all the time. We live with each other. It doesn't." It's not computing what you're talking about. I literally see you every day, and I don't really get to hang with the boys and play video games. Now, as much as this was a humorous skit, this little humorous video, even though they were making fun of couples that do this, this is something that actually happens, that couples actually argue about. There's always somebody within the relationship that feels that the other doesn't actually spend time with them. And there's always one that is basically saying, what do you mean? Like, what do you want from me? I'm here. We like the guy said, like, I literally live with you. I see you all the time. Now, if we were to go back to why Kojeve's notions of time and space can be critical here, is that if we use his concepts and kind of just staple them on to this humorous scenario, um, actually the boyfriend saying that he lives with his girlfriend and therefore he sees her all the time, actually he is conflating, right? Using Kojeve's concepts of time and space, he's actually conflating. He's actually not talking about time. He's only talking about space. He's only talking about space. Um, and so when you think about it, it's like, yes, he does see her all the time, but that doesn't imply that he's actually spending time with her. Um, you could say it's a sort of passive time, but this passive time really is just occupying space, right? There's really no work being done within that space, and that's why I like it when Kojev says that space is nature, is given being, because I mean, let's say if I walk through the forest, I don't really have to do any work. I'm just kind of in my given being. I'm just there, right? I'm just there. That's it. I'm not. There's nothing that is actively pushing me to humanize, to go from a given being into human being, right? And just to clarify for those that maybe are not familiar with Kojev, the way Kojeve describes how to become human being is that we have the capacity to negate, transform givens. Now, going back to that little skit, we can see that this little capacity to negate givens is actually an interesting scenario with this woman and this man, because what is going on is that actually, even though the man is using the language of, well, yes, I see you all the time, implying that I spend time with you all the time, but actually this notion of seeing only implies the nature of space, right? Like, I see you there, but the conflation is, just because I see you there doesn't mean I'm actually spending time with you. I am here, you're here, and you're also here, and that's it. you know but the woman wants to spend time, so she wants to negate a given, and what the man doesn't realize is that them just living in this space is the given. And what she's asking of him is that she wants him to negate the given. She wants him to spend time with her. Uh, Now we can always go into the complexity of like how do we really negate uh, givens and so on, because it is a little bit ambiguous in the way Kojeve describes it. I mean, obviously he says work, right? Like we work for it, but um, I think it's a very cliche saying that like, well, as couples, you have to just try to work through it. You gotta work. I mean, it's like, yeah, I think we all know it takes work. I think we all like deep inside we know it takes work. But then, like, even though you could say that we all know it takes work, we definitely don't like working for it. We don't like the work. So I guess really, if I were to dive into this further, it's not the fact that we don't know that we need to work. I think really it's about how do we have a better qualitative experience with our notion of work, right? With our notion of working through something together. How do we have a better qualitative relationship towards this work? Um, whether it be with our family members, whether it be with our friends. I mean, because it's like it's the funny thing about work is that we all know we need to do it, and because we all know we need to do it, it's like a given, right? It literally vanishes into a given again, and so. But the one thing that needs work is the is actually our qualitative experience or our qualitative or the real work is having a new qualitative or how can I phrase this? My gosh, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Uh, how do we have a better qualitative relationship with work? And that is the work itself. Uh, because obviously, and I want to say it's very obvious to a lot of us. Actually I'm okay on dying on that hill. Like I want to say like yeah, all of us know that it does take work to have a relationship, and so it's the work towards work that yeah, it's the work towards work that is probably the more difficult thing. Um, and but anyways, I just thought to share that this little funny skit with this boyfriend and girlfriend is that the man is actually conflating spending time with the girl as only occupying space. He's only occupying space because they just live together. There's actually no spending real time with the his girlfriend. Uh, but you know, there is this like it's also not as clear cut, and I'm going to problematize this now for all of you. And the reason why I'm going to problematize this is because I love problematizing things. Even if it's a stupid thing or not a stupid thing, it's fine. But I'm going to problematize this and say this. Okay. How does love play with time and space? You know what I mean? Like how does love play with time and space? Is love time and space? Or is love something that's sort of indeterminate, right? It's something that you can't really distinguish in terms of time and space, right? So this aspect of I love you, so I want you to spend time with me, right? But if I were to put it from the boyfriend's perspective, it's he's saying, and very also implicitly, it's kind of like, yes, I love you too, but I want to spend time with my friends, you know, because I feel like I never spend time with my friends and I'm always here with you in this house, right? Like this is the kind of logic that he's coming from. But the wife is coming from the logic of, well, I love you and I feel like you don't spend enough time with me. And what is the missing part in all of this is that, well, one is coming from the notion of time and one is coming from the notion of space. But at the same time, yeah, time, same time. uh, this got really complicated all of a sudden. But at the same time, none of them are aware that they are approaching different aspects of time and space, basically. One doesn't know that he's actually talking about space, and one doesn't know that she's actually talking about time. I think the woman is, but it's funny because what the man is actually saying, right? If I were to, what the man is actually saying is, even though he's saying, yes, I spend time with you all the time. Now let me spend time with my boys, right? What is also being said in that is he's saying, I also want space, right? So there's this aspect of the woman saying, I want. So the woman is both saying that she wants time, but no space. And the man is saying, I have given you time and now I want space. You see how uh, it's both at the same time. It's both at the same time. So there is this dialectical relationship going on where one wants time and one wants space. But of course, in the actual experience of the conversation, one is saying, "Well, I will, like, what are you talking about? I don't spend enough time with you. I'm giving you time. I literally give you time all the time." And the woman is saying, "No, you don't. You want to play video games with your boys." So, I guess where I'm trying to get at is, where do we fit love in this picture? Um, does love let does love does a sort of letting, like, okay, I will give you your space. I will give you your time with your boys. Where how does love itself involve with time and space? And this is the question for me that is really interesting, because it's like it it's one of those things that it isn't really, for me, it isn't really quite clear just from taking this scenario. It isn't really quite clear, and I think it's, and again, I want to really make a little caveat here. It's never clear about who's right and who's wrong. And if you approach relationships from right and from who's right and who's wrong, then you are most definitely wrong. So that's like the one thing that I am extremely against. Uh, Couples that are obsessed with who's right and who's wrong. Um, but I think by me showing you the the dialectical relationship between space and time, uh, you start to see that one technically wants space and one wants time. But where that person wants space, that person wants time with, like, for example, the boys. And where that woman wants space, she wants the boyfriend to have space with the boys and her to have time with him. You get what I'm saying? I know it's a little confusing, but it's all happening at, I hate saying it this way. It's all happening simultaneously. I'll stop saying same time. It's all happening simultaneously. Um, so wherever there is space, there's time, right? Like we know this when we talk about uh, uh, cosmology and and all that stuff. Um, but the one thing that for me that is really challenging is like, how does, if you do claim to love each other, how do we begin to sort this out? And again, coming from the approach of like, well, the boyfriend is wrong because he is not spending time with his girlfriend. And but we can't just take this little snippet and be like, oh, the boyfriend's wrong, because none of it's really clear about who's right and who's wrong. Because the woman could also just be extremely, extremely selfish, right? Extremely greedy with time, right? Where it's like, how do we not know that this woman is kind of upholding a obsessive, suffocating type of love, right? Um, but the same thing for the man. It's like, well, how do we know that he's not upholding some type of love as avoidance, where he does everything he can basically to not spend time with her, right? Because he lives with her. Again, these are all possible situations for both of them. And so the real question that needs to be asked is, how does love behave? How does real love mediate? I'm not even sure if I want to say mediate, for crying out loud. Um, but how does love itself involve uh, with space and time, with our personal relationship? How does love do this? Because um, I've witnessed I've witnessed this before, where it's like, and I can only use my family members. I think when I spent time with my mom, for a lot of people, it would be like, "Oh, you guys are just occupying space," and it's really weird. I think when people actually see me spend time with my mom, they think it's really weird. And the reason why they think it's really weird is because me and my mother's interaction are actually we don't really talk that much. Like, there's very little that is said half the time, um, except when we go like walking. When she invites me to go walking with her, we'll talk about everything. What she'll talk about what's going on with work, I'll talk about my work and so on, and we'll just talk about everything. But when when we're just like in the house, when I'm visiting her in the house, actually not too much is ever really said. We just try to find a TV show to watch or a movie to watch, and really that's how we spend time together. Uh, so what I'm trying to get at is that love. I think love can do this weird thing where it can make space into time, and it can make time into space, right? Love transforms space into time, and time into space. Um, when we love each other on based on whatever we uh, on whatever we need, I guess it's just interesting. I don't know. I mean, I do want, I really want to think more about that. How how does love itself interact with Kojeve's notion of time, space, and work? Because then it's it's something that is. I mean, because the reason why I bring up love and not desire, um, because I actually want to say before we started saying desire, we really meant love. But because love is such a loaded word and love is so stained, but then actually desire itself is slowly becoming that too. Um, but love is a lot more loaded and a lot more stained and cliche. It's cliche, but uh, I just thought about how would that interact, and I'm trying to think separately of Kojev right here. And in this part, I'm trying to think separately without Kojev, because I know Kojev in his interpretation of Hegel talks about really our desire is the desire of the other, meaning like we have the desire to be recognized. Uh, so I guess you could say if we actually do want to entertain this, maybe this model does help. Maybe it does. So let's just plug it in and see what we get. So if we use Kojev's model of that, then that would mean if we love each other, if I want time, then you give me time, and if you want space, I give you space. But the crazy part is that it's hard to give you time, but actually, no. This works. I see it, but it's very hard to circle around it. Okay. So if a partner wants time, if let's say I want to put myself in a scenario, okay? Because it's just easier for me to grasp this. Let's say I like I'm in a relationship with a woman, and she's talking about that she wants time with me, but really I want space, right? I want to be in a given being, and I don't want to spend time. Okay, so how does love interact uh, with this? So you could say love would behave that by giving me space, right? Let's say the woman, because she loves me, I'm not saying that it's correct to do it in this way, but let's just say because she loves me, she does it anyways, right? Because she realizes that I will acknowledge her or recognize her if she gives me the space. Right? And it's because she gives me the space that I will give her the time, and vice versa, right? You could say it's because I give her the time that she will give me the space. And this enacts simultaneously, right? To give the time. If you want space, you give let's again make it drop back to the fundamental situation. The woman wants time with the man wants space from the woman. If love interacts the way I think, using a sort of Kojevian model, is that they both fall into each other, time and space, right? And this is what Hegel calls spirit. Um, uh, and what would happen is that if I just give up my space and give her time, if it is actually love, then she will give me my space, right? So it's like it falls into the other, and into itself, because it's like in the end I wanted space, but if I give her the time, and if this is actually love, then I will get space. Like it's so then actually I'm not. Am I really giving time finally? It's but I don't know. I find that I just find that really interesting because like, if I do give her time, I'm recognizing her, and if she recognizes me in response, she would give me space. So it's like in essence, we both get what we want, but at the same time, it's like we're no longer a both. It's like we fall into itself. Of course, this is just a very rough thought. I just really wanted to figure out how love would play out in Kojeve's notion of time and space. Um, and for those of you that are still confused about why maybe Kojev talks about space and nature, space has nature. I mean, just think about Instagram, right? Instagram is a kind of space, but it's a kind of given. Like there's so many givens within Instagram, right? There's all these people, there's all these photos, there's all these videos, like already at hand, right? They're just all given. The only time that it becomes not given is when I decide to actually interact with somebody on uh, Instagram Live. Once I interact with somebody on Instagram, I'm actually now playing into time, right? I am now negating the given, right? Because even though the person was there, when I choose to talk to somebody, I am now recognizing them and giving them time. And so I'm negating the givens. That's just to like help those that maybe don't understand about Kojev's interpretation of Hegel, where he says, space has nature, and nature is basically just givens. Um, but man has the capacity to negate givens, so that's why he calls it time, because time annihilates, uh, time negates. And yeah, that's it. I think that's all I really wanted to talk about, and maybe point out the complexity of space and time. But actually, I just realized that I really wanted to share with you guys a poem by Pablo Neruda because it really emphasized the notion of time and space. Uh, and it's a poem. I mean, hopefully, maybe you guys can find it. It's actually a very popular poem by Pablo Neruda, and it's a poem that it's basically Naruto is talking about this experience with this woman, and he's saying like part of like a this is an abbreviation of the poem. It's like he says, "Your hand on my chest falls like as if it was my own hand," or something like that. It's like it literally like collapses, like it vanishes into the other. Um, and that poem is so beautiful because it really emphasizes the simultaneous vanishing of time and space, where it's like it goes for itself and in itself in a very Hegelian way. Like, no, I think Neruda really capitalizes on that experience of like this is me. I don't know. Poets really nail it. I think poets have a better experience of what Kojève might be actually talking about when it comes to intimate relationships. Anyways, I that's it. If you guys have any questions, any maybe additions or insights from your own experience that you guys would like to share with me, go ahead. Um, if I get enough comments or get enough questions, I'm always excited to do a another video where I just go through the questions and I try to answer them, and I love doing that. Honestly, it's great, and I love giving you guys the attention, the attention and the effort of my contemplation about your questions and your thoughts and so on. So, as always, I really do appreciate you guys. And all right, take care.